beer, it's good for you.
Hello and welcome to the video. This is part 6 of my series of videos that look at common mistakes made by homebrewers all the way through the process from grain to glass. The purpose of this series is to put people on the right track within a number of areas within each video. If you find that you are already on the right track, then I hope that you'll find this reassuring. I will not go into huge detail on each topic, but where appropriate I will link forward to further information within the video, and then I will mirror these links within the video's YouTube description. Let's begin by looking at sparge temperature. Many homebrewers still believe that sparging at temperatures over 170 degrees Fahrenheit or 77 degrees Celsius will result in astringency from the grain, and it is fair to say that this certainly can happen, but only in certain cases. These cases relate to the actual pH level of the water used to sparge with. If the pH is below 6, then you can in actual fact use much hotter water to sparge with and you will see no adverse effects. This is an easy pH point for brewers of all types to stay within for beer brewing of most styles, and averagely a pH of between 5.2 to 5.5 is commonplace. Now, before some try to argue this point, and yes, there is always going to be at least one, I suggest they look into decoction mashing as a good starting point. This process from the 1700s involved the boiling of grain during the mashing process. They must also consider that the malt that we brew with today actually undertakes a very different and far more technically advanced malting process than ever seen before, which adds in protections not enjoyed until recent decades. For this reason, more and more breweries than ever actually add their mash water at close to boiling temperature on insertion to the mash tank. While we are on this topic, let me also make it very clear that you can actually sparge with cold water too, with no adverse effects other than a slowdown to your next temperature step. So there you have it. Staying with the theme of temperature, let's now look at drinking beer at the wrong temperature. I've travelled a fair amount in my life and have tasted a great deal of both commercial beer as well as homebrew around the world. One trend that I have noticed is the tendency for some to serve beer regardless of style at very cold temperatures. I have experienced this at breweries, bars and also homebrewers conventions. Now do not misunderstand me, some styles of beer really suit this, but frankly not many. Quite often I will feel this extreme coldness in the glass and I will simply set it aside in the hope that it will warm up quickly. Sometimes I will cup it with both hands to speed this process up. On occasion, especially when it is homebrew being served, I will be asked why I have not so much as given the beer a sniff, let alone tasted it. My answer is always along the lines of being something like, because when I smell or taste it, I want to be able to smell or taste it. Right now it is very cold and that is simply not going to be possible. Sometimes, but not very often, this leads to a challenge by the person, and I simply set up a blind aroma and taste experiment with the same beer at 2 different temperatures. After this test, nobody has disagreed after this point, as the same exact beer is always notably more aromatic and flavourful at a temperature that most befits the beer style. Shown on screen now is a guide that I hope will help you enjoy your beer in general more. You could have brewed your best beer ever but served at the wrong temperature and you will sadly never really get to appreciate it in its true glory. As you can see from this chart, only mass market light lagers are suitable for very cold temperatures, and even they are not suitable for just above freezing point. The stronger beer styles like Belgian strong ales and barley wines are certainly best served at much higher temperatures, and the ever popular IPA style is best enjoyed at between 45 to 50 degrees Fahrenheit or 7 to 10 degrees Celsius. Lower temperatures than this within an IPA will mute the hops and the grain bill's backing flavours, meaning you are not enjoying the style to its full potential of tastes, which is simply a great shame, I'm sure you will agree. If this is an area that is new to you, then it is more than possible that you will soon discover a whole new level of flavour and aroma in your beers by following these temperatures. Next, here is a somewhat odd one concerning the use of olive oil in fermentation. Some years ago now, news began to erupt about a new way to aerate wort by using olive oil, leading to improved beer quality. It was reported that this also increased ester content as well as removing the need for oxygen or other aeration techniques, which were still considered very important when this first came to light in the early 2000s. Better still, all that was required was a very small amount of olive oil to make a difference, so this meant that this method was literally open to anyone. In the year 2005, a full report was available from the source of this discovery, parts of which I'm using in this section of the video. This report is very easy to find online in PDF format by simply searching for its title, which I have now shown on screen. Because this information came from a respected US brewery, it caused quite a stir, and to this day you will find information about how to do this all over the internet. Then a problem was found when the likes of White Labs, Brad Smith of Beersmith and Brewlosophy, to name but a few, tried this method by adding small amounts of olive oil to fermentation vessels before pitching their yeast. The problem here was that quite simply they all found there to be no real difference in all of their test cases, despite the report's findings. Brewlosophy made the very relevant point that brewers are often willing to do some pretty peculiar things if it promises to improve their beer, but their tests, just like those from others, found no actual differences were experienced in the end beer when taste comparisons were made. However, it should be noted though that the study was not actually looking at using olive oil in fermentation. It was simply reporting on a theory around improving yeast cell walls within storage by using the oil rather than oxygen. It should be said that if you do add a small amount of olive oil to your fermenter before adding your yeast, then this is really not going to allow the oil adequate opportunity to be absorbed by your yeast before the onset of fermentation. Despite all of this, to this day I still hear of homebrewers using this method. Let us finish up with some discussion around Kveik yeast misunderstandings. I still see on a regular basis that some are suffering stalled fermentations, so here is some quick information to assist. Firstly, if you are buying Kveik in liquid form, then unlike other liquid yeast, this is not actually needing a starter to create the right amount of cells, because Kveik actually thrives best by use of underpitching rather than overpitching. You may still wish to use a starter though to build up the cells for future brews and to bring all of the yeast into a healthier state. A single teaspoon of Kveik is usually going to be enough yeast to serve at least 25 litres or 6.6 US gallons worth of batch size. On this basis, most liquid yeast packs have enough for 3 to 4 batches before you even add a starter. However, the same is not true when it comes to Lallemans's Kveik, which is sold in dry form. This has its own formulation and thus its own pitch rate when pitched directly from the sachet. However, if you reculture this Kveik isolate, then normal Kveik pitching rates will apply because of this change to the formulation. Another important thing to understand about Kveik is that it really benefits from yeast nutrients applied in higher amounts than normal. Personally, I use 3 times the regular amount, but I know some others that go even further than this. When Kveik is used with the right pitch rate and yeast nutrient, then very satisfactory results will be enjoyed. I have various Kveik related videos on my channel, 2 of which are shown on screen and are linked in this video's description that discuss these topics and more. I do hope that you found this video useful, informative and interesting. If so, why not consider liking and subscribing? For further support you can join the channel's Facebook group, and if you would like to support the channel then check out the channel's merchandise store, as all profits go back into the channel. Until next time, happy brewing!